Hello and welcome to Bite My Pie. How do you make a YouTube video? Or any other kind of production video, come to that. That's what we'll be looking at here. After considering the hardware, we'll go through the process of actually making a short video, covering software that can be used for each step. So if this sounds of interest to you, stick around. Obviously there are many ways to make a video, whether it's for YouTube or any other purpose, but I'm going to go through the process that I use to produce content. The first thing we need to consider is hardware. I use a desktop PC as my editing workhorse, but this could equally be a laptop. You can see the specs of my machine on the screen. The most important parts, other than having adequate storage for your files, are the processor and memory. A decent graphics card can also help when it comes to video encoding, although still not as important as a good CPU, providing the hardware supports it. This can help speed up the process of exporting the finished video. Apart from a reasonably spec PC, you'll also want a microphone. Even if you're using a laptop, I'd still recommend getting a standalone USB mic, as the sound quality of integrated microphones is typically not great. You'll also need some speakers. While the quality of these won't really impact your video, it's still a good idea to have at least satisfactory audio, as you want to get an idea of what your video will sound like to your listeners. Optionally, if you have a face better suited to TV than radio, you may wish to invest in a camera. This could be anything from a basic webcam up to an expensive DSLR. Whatever model you choose, you'll probably want a tripod to mount it on. With the equipment listed on screen, you have more than enough to produce a good quality video, but depending on the topic you may require a few extras. For example, when creating a video about the Raspberry Pi, it helps to have a Pi at your disposal. Similarly, if reviewing an Android tablet, ideally you'll want one to demonstrate with. Speaking of additional devices, if you intend to record video from another source, you'll most likely need a dedicated device to do this. I use a HDMI capture card. You connect this to a USB 3 port on your computer. You then connect a HDMI cable from the device that you want to record, for example a Raspberry Pi, to the input of the capture card. You can then view the video feed you intend to capture through the software on your computer. Optionally, if the capture card has a HDMI output, you can connect this to a separate display to view the video feed on there as well. Okay. Now that we have our hardware all sorted, let's begin. Since in this video I'm effectively recording the recording, I'll be demonstrating the video creation process on this mini PC, which if you're interested is a B-Link BT3X running Windows 10. To do this, my main desktop computer that I mentioned a moment ago is capturing what's happening on this mini PC through the HDMI capture card that I also mentioned before, and then the mini PC will capture the video I'm going to create on it. So the first thing we need to do is download the software. Anyone that's watched my channel before won't be surprised to hear that this is all free and open source. So let's open the web browser and we're going to search for OBS. This is the Open Broadcaster software at obsproject.com, and I'm going to download the version for Windows and save that to my downloads directory. The next program we'll need is called GIMP. And for anyone not familiar, the GNU image manipulation program is like a free version of Photoshop. So let's download that as well. Again, I'll get the Windows version and I'll download it directly and save that to my downloads folder as well. Then lastly, I'm going to search for Shotcut, which is this one at shotcut.org. As it tells us, this is a cross-platform video editor. So let's click to download that one as well, and we'll close the ad. Then I'll download the Windows installer, and I'm going to get the 64-bit version and save that to my PC. You may have noticed that all three programs are available for Windows, Mac and Linux, so download the version that you require, and when you've got those you can close the web browser. Okay, I'm going to open File Explorer and head to my downloads directory. Then I'll double click OBS Studio to install that one first. And yes, I do want to proceed. Click Next on the installation wizard to continue. then next again to accept the license, and now you can click on install. I don't want to launch the software just yet, so I'm going to untick the box and then click on finish to close the wizard. Next I'm going to install GIMP. I'll make it available for all users on this computer, which is the recommended option, and click yes to continue. I'll leave the language on English, and if you wish you can customize the installation, but I'm just going to go with the defaults. Let's click finish to close that, and now we'll install Shotcut. Yes, I do want to continue. We need to agree to the license, then click on next. I'll get it to create a desktop shortcut, and then click on install. Once the installation wizard is completed, we can close that. And now that all of the software is installed, I'm going to close File Explorer as well. As you can see, we've got a desktop shortcut for OBS Studio and one for Shotcut as well. But by default GIMP hasn't given us one, so let's rectify that now. I'm going to search in the search box for GIMP and then choose Open File Location. Then I'll right click on the highlighted GIMP shortcut and choose Copy. Then by right clicking on the desktop we can choose Paste. And now that we have a desktop shortcut, let's close the open window. With all of the software ready to go, let's launch OBS Studio. If you're not familiar with it, OBS Studio is a powerful video streaming and recording program. On initially opening the software, OBS will take us through its auto configuration wizard. So the first thing we need to do is choose what we're going to be using the software for. In this case I'm going to choose Optimize just for recording, I will not be streaming, and then click on Next. You can choose the resolution at which your video will be captured, but it's a good idea to leave it on Use Current as this is what your monitor is set to. You also have the option to set the FPS or frames per second. By default OBS will usually record at either 60 or 30 frames per second, but we'll use 60 when possible. Since this video is going to be for YouTube, and since this isn't a particularly powerful PC, I'm going to click on this and change it to 30 frames per second, and then click on Next. Okay, the configuration wizard is complete, and the program has determined that for my hardware these settings are the best, so I'm going to click on Apply Settings to accept them. This isn't really a tutorial on how to use OBS Studio. That said, I'll go through the basics of how we get it running. Let's first click on Settings. I'll resize the window so that we can see the bottom of it, and from there select Output. By default OBS will place your exported videos in your computer's videos directory, but if you'd sooner put them somewhere else you can change the location here. If you do make any changes to the settings, remember to apply them. I'm just going to cancel out of there. The backbone of OBS are its scenes and sources. Without getting into too much detail, a scene is like a canvas that you can add various sources to. By default there is just a single scene, but you can easily add more by clicking on the little plus button here. Since the short video I'll be creating will be relatively simple, a single scene will suffice. Then within a scene you can pick your sources. A source can be anything from the current display to a video feed captured from another device. To add one, click on the little plus button at the bottom of the sources window. On my main PC that's recording this, I chose Video Capture Device to get the live feed from my HDMI capture card. However, to record the short video I'm about to produce, I just want to capture the screen on this mini PC, so I'm going to choose Display Capture. You can leave the automatically generated name or give it one of your own. I'm going to call it Mini PC, and then click on OK. It's fine to go with the default options and then click OK again. If this is your first time seeing a captured display, it may look a little bizarre. This is because you're seeing the screen captured within itself over and over again. If you're going to add your face to the video, you'll also need to add your camera to OBS. This can be done by adding another source and selecting the Video Capture Device option. But if, like me, you're keeping it audio only, you obviously don't need to do this. What you do need to do though is check that your microphone is working. So make sure it's connected to your computer, and if, like mine, your microphone also has a mute button, make sure that this isn't enabled. If it's working, you should be getting a readout in the audio mixer in the microphone section. Check that this is registering well up the scale, but not so high as to be going into the red, as this will cause distortion. If necessary, you can adjust the microphone's volume level by using this slider. Just click and drag to move it. And with all that set, we're ready to start recording. Well, you could just wing it. It does help if you have some idea of what you intend to talk about beforehand. You don't have to script everything word for word, but jotting down an outline of what you're going to cover can be helpful. In the little video I'm about to create, I'll be going through the steps to install the free and entertaining game known as Super Tux Kart. If you've never played this before, I highly recommend checking it out. Okay, without further ado, let's click on Start Recording and begin. And we need to minimise the OBS Studio window out of the way. Welcome to my short video where we'll be setting up the Super Tux Kart racing game. Whether you're running Windows, Mac or Linux, you can install this free 3D game and let your inner Lewis Hamilton loose. If at any point you make a mistake, or if you've simply finished the section you're working on, click the little icon in the taskbar to bring OBS Studio back into view, and then click on Stop Recording. Right, let's carry on. To get started, we need to download the software. So open your web browser and search for Super Tux Kart. It's this one we want, supertuxkart.net. From the home screen, click on Download and then select your operating system. And I'm going to save that to my Downloads directory. And when it's finished downloading, you can close your web browser. Right, let's go back into OBS Studio and stop the recording. Now let's record the next section. With Super Tux downloaded, head to your Downloads folder to install the software. Double-click the file to get started. And click Yes to continue. Click Next on the wizard. And then click I agree to the license. Click Next again, and then click on Install. With the program installed, we can click on Finish and then close File Explorer. Right, let's stop that part of the recording. Time to launch the game. If you head for the Windows search box and type Super Tux Kart, you can then open the software. You have the option to connect to a server to download add-ons and notify you of updates. For this short demonstration, I'm not going to do that. I'll keep with the default name it's given me of Bite My Pie and click on OK. It then asks if you'd like to play the tutorial of the game. Again, I'm not going to do that here, but feel free to try it. I'm going to go for single player. Here you can choose the type of kart that you want. I'll stick with the default. I'll keep it on novice, and then for game mode I'll select normal race. You then need to choose an unlocked track. I'll go for this one, and then you can click on start race. Okay, so use the cursor keys on your keyboard to control your kart. If you want to exit, press the escape key on your keyboard, and then from there I'll exit the race and I'll quit the program. Okay, let's stop the recording. Right, now to record the ending. And that's how you get up and running with Super Tux Kart. Thanks for watching this short video and happy racing. Right, let's stop the recorder. With our initial recording complete, we can close the software. And then if we head into the videos folder, we should see our recordings. And here are the 5 video sections I recorded in OBS Studio. Right, it's time to start editing. To do this, we'll open the Shotcut software, then click on Open File and select our video recordings. If you click on the first one and then hold down the Shift key on your keyboard and click on the last one, that will select all of them. and then we can click on open. Shotcut will start playing back the first video, so let's pause that. You could easily dedicate an entire video to using this video editor, but I'll just go through some of the features that I use. Over on the left we have the playlist, which is where our videos get imported into. To the right of that we have the preview window, complete with playback controls. And at the bottom of the interface is the timeline. This is where we'll carry out the bulk of our video editing. Okay, to get started, let's click and drag the first video onto the timeline and let it go. I'm also going to click and drag the side of the video preview window to make it bigger. And then I'll close the recent panel and the history one as well. And let's drag the right hand side of the video preview window out a bit too. If it's not already at the start, click and drag the playhead back to the beginning of the timeline. And then let's play back the start of the recording. And begin. And we need to minimize the OBS Studio window out of the way. Welcome to my short video. And let's pause that. As you heard, I started recording the video before the part that I actually need. So in other words, the video needs trimming. So set the playhead where you want the video to begin. You can use the speech waveform to help guide you. I can see that I started the introduction in this section here. So I'll click to place the playhead just before it. Next, tap the S key on your keyboard to split the clip. Now if we click on the part that we don't need to select it and press the delete key to delete, then we can right click in the empty space and choose remove. Now if we press the home key on the keyboard to return the playhead back to the beginning and press the space bar to listen again. Welcome to my short video where we'll press the space bar to pause it. That's trimmed the video to start where we want it to. Now if we skip ahead and listen again, Lewis Hamilton loose. This is where I want the first section or introduction to my video to end. So I'm going to press the S key again on my keyboard to split the clip. Then click on the unwanted part to select it and press the delete key to remove. With the first section of video sorted, we can drag in the second section. Make sure that it butts up against the end of the first part and then let go of the mouse. Let's play this clip back to see where we want it to start. To get started we need to download the. So in my case I want it to begin about here, and I'll split the clip. Then I can right click on the unwanted section and remove it. If you drag the scroll bar along the bottom you can find the ending of the recording. So let's take a listen to this. And when it's finished downloading you can close your web browser. Right, let's go back in. So I actually want the end of this section to finish about there, and I'll split the clip and delete the unwanted part. So hopefully you've now got the gist of how to add videos to the timeline. Rather than make you watch, I'll add the last 3 parts and come back when it's complete. Okay, that's all 5 video sections added to the timeline. Before we go any further, let's save the project. Ideally this should be done as soon as you start editing, but better late than never. So to do this, click on File and then on Save As. Give it a name. I'll just go with Super Tux Cut. Decide where you want to save it. I'm going to put it into my videos folder and then click on the Save button. We now have the video imported and trimmed from start to finish, which may be all you require. But to improve the viewing experience there are a few extra steps we can take. So let's click inside the timeline and press the home button on the keyboard to return to the start of the track. The first thing I like to do is separate the audio from the video. To do this, right click on each section of the track in turn, select More and then Detach Audio. If I scroll down a touch you can see that we've now got a new audio track that contains the sound from the first video clip. So I'm going to do the same thing for the other video clips as well. And the video is now on its own track and the audio is on another. Even though they are now on separate tracks, if I play back the video they both still play together. Welcome to my short video. So if it makes no difference to the final playback, why split them in the first place? As an example, let's introduce a fade at the start of the video. We can do this by hovering the mouse pointer over the top left of the video clip. When you see the flashing circle, hold down the left button on your mouse and drag it to create the fade. If I set it to 1.00 and let go of the mouse button, I now have a 1 second fade in. Let's see what this looks like. Welcome to my short video. So you can see that the picture faded in from black over the course of a single second. Now if I hadn't separated the audio from the video, the fade in effect would have also been applied to the sound. In other words, the audio would have started at nothing and rose to 100% also over the duration of 1 second. But if I scroll back down to the audio track, there is no fade in effect here. You may also want to put some descriptive text at the start of your video. To do that, we first need to add another video track by right-clicking on this green area at the start of the existing video track, heading into Track Operations, and then selecting Add Video Track. And we now have a new video track on top of the original one. Next, we need to create the text we're going to add to our video, and this is where we'll start using GIMP. So let's first save the changes we've made in Shotcut, and then minimize the program out of the way, and double click GIMP's desktop shortcut to launch the software. Let's click on File and select New. It's a good idea to set the image size to that of your video resolution. So in my case, that's 1280 by 720. And then if you click the little plus sign next to Advanced Options, it's often useful, particularly when working with text for videos, to fill with, instead of background colour, transparency, and click OK. And this checkered pattern represents that transparency. What this means is that when we create our text and add it to the video, we will only see the text, and because the background of this image is transparent, the video will display through it. If you're not sure what I'm talking about, don't worry, hopefully all will become clear, or dare I say transparent, as we go through the process. So the first thing I'm going to do is select the text tool, which is this letter A here. I'm also going to change the selected tab in the toolbar on the left to the Tool Options tab. So now we can choose the type of text that we want. By clicking on the capital and lowercase a, we can choose the font. I'm going to scroll down the list and find, where's it hiding? There we go, Times New Roman. I'm going to set the size to 200 pixels, and if I click in the colour box, I'm going to use the colour palette to set the colour to white at the top left corner, and we can see that that's now the current text colour, or at least it will be when I click OK. OK, if I click in the image, I can start typing my text. I'll just enter Super Tux Kart. That's gone off the screen slightly, so I can either select the Move tool up here, then make sure that Move the Active Layer is selected. By the way, the text layer is currently active as we've just been working on it. If that wasn't the case, you can see your layers over here on the right hand side. If you're not familiar with the concept of layers, there's a device known as an overhead projector, though they're not very popular these days. Basically, you would place clear sheets of plastic called acetates on an illuminated bed. The OHP would then project whatever was written or drawn on each acetate onto a nearby wall or screen for people to see. The idea was that you could put different things on each acetate and then lay them on top of one another to build up the overall image. Because the background of each acetate is clear, only the content written or drawn would be displayed. It's the same idea with layers. You can think of a layer as being like an acetate, and in the same way we can then build them up, adding items to each one. So you just click on the layer that you want to make it active, and now we can click and drag the text around the screen to where we want it. Alternatively, because we made the image size the same as our video's resolution, in other words this image is the same size as our video display, we could use GIMP's alignment tool to center the text. To do this, hold down the left mouse button on the Move tool until the new menu appears, and then keeping the button pressed down, move to alignment and let go. With the alignment tool selected, click on the text, and if you head to the alignment tool options, you can center the text both vertically and horizontally. And if you want to change the alignment tool back to the Move tool, just do the same thing, except this time select Move. With the image ready to go, click on the File menu and select Save As. I'm going to call it Title, and I want to save it in my Pictures directory. I just need to resize the window so that I can see the Save button, and then I'm going to click on it. That's actually saved this using GIMP's XCF file type. which is great if we want to come back later and edit it, but not so useful for using with the Shotcut video editor. So for this reason we also want to export our text as a PNG image file. Let's click on File again, and this time head to Export As. I'll stick with the file name of title, make sure that it ends in .png, and then click on the Export button. It's fine to stick with the default options and then click on Export again. While you may be tempted to only export the image as a PNG file to save time, I'd always recommend saving it in GIMP's XCF file type as well, just in case you need to edit it later. Right, with our text created, let's close the program. And if we click on the Shotcut icon down in the taskbar, we can bring the video editor back into view. From there, I'm going to click on Open File, browse to my Pictures directory, and then select the title PNG file that I saved a moment ago. Then if I click on Open, I need to click on the little plus sign over here to bring it into the playlist. And now I can drag it onto my new video timeline. And straight away you can see the effect in the video preview window. At the moment the text will appear straight away right at the start of the video. If I didn't want this, I can click and drag it further along the timeline to where I do want it to appear. But since this is my video title, I'm happy to have it at the start. What I don't want though is for it to appear straight away. Welcome to my short video. Since I've got the video itself fading in, the text looks a bit out of place just sitting there. So just as I did on the first video track, I'm going to grab the fade in handle and create a 1 second fade in here as well. So now if I play back the video, welcome to my short video. That's more like it. You can see that the picture now all fades in together. If we play back a bit more of the video, where we'll be setting up the Super Tux Kart Racing, you can see that at the moment the Super Tux Kart title just abruptly disappears. So let's add a 1 second fade out to the end of the text. Now if I play that back,
where we'll be setting up the Super Tux Kart Racing game,
you may have noticed that although the text faded, it also went black. When the screen was black to start with, as was the case with the fade-in at the beginning, that was fine. But this time we want the text to simply vanish into the background. So to do this, single left click on the title clip to make sure that it's selected, then click on the Filters tab, and this is where we can see some of the effects that we're applying to the video and also add new ones. So the effect we're after right now is obviously fade out video, so I'm going to click on that to highlight it. And the setting we're after is this one here, adjust opacity instead of fade with black. And if we tick that, the title will then just fade into the background. So let's have a look at what it looks like now.
we'll be setting up the Super Tux Kart Racing game.
That's more like it. Let's also say that I want the title to stay on the screen a little bit longer. To do that, I can move my mouse pointer to the end of the video clip until it changes into these two out-facing arrowheads. Then click and drag to the right to increase the duration and let it go when it's where I want it. And just like that, the Super Tux Kart title will now stay on the screen longer.
Welcome to my short video where we'll be setting up the Super Tux Kart Racing game, whether you're running Windows, Mac or...
Right, let's change the tab back to the video playlist. If you're not sure if you've made changes to your video project since you last saved it, you can check in the top bar. The little asterisk indicates that if I don't want to lose any unsaved work, I really should click on Save. And with my most recent edits saved, the asterisk disappears. At the end of my video introduction, I'd like to have a racing car zoom across the screen. To do this, I first need to get a picture of a racing car, so let's open up a web browser, and I'm going to head to pixabay.com. If you're not familiar with this website, I highly recommend you check it out. It's an excellent resource for free images. So let's search for racing car. And I'm going to change the image type to illustrations. I want to pick a vehicle that shows the side view, so let's select this one here. And I'll click on the free download button and then on download again. We need to prove that we're not a robot and then complete the lovely capture. And now we should be able to save our image. I'm just going to call it Mustang and then click on the save button. Okay, if I close the web browser and open File Explorer, I'm actually going to cut and paste it from my downloads directory, cut into pictures and paste. Next I'm going to right click on the image and open it with GIMP. Notice at the moment this image just has a single layer, and handily for us, because it's a PNG, it also already has a transparent background. Since I want the car to race from the left to the right hand side of the screen, unless I want it going in reverse, it's actually pointing in the wrong direction. We can easily fix this by clicking to reveal GIMP's image drop down list, then heading to transform and selecting flip horizontally, and just like that the car's now facing the right way. Now let's say I want to put a decal on the door. I could create this directly on this base layer, but it's much better to add a new layer first. To do this, right click on the existing layer and choose New Layer. If you want, you can give it a name. I'll call this one Decal. I'm going to make sure that the new layer is transparent so that we can see through it, and then click on OK. Although it doesn't look as though much has actually happened, we now have this new layer, Decal. So clicking on it to make sure that's selected, I'm going to head over here to the Tools menu and select the Rectangle Select tool. And then by clicking and dragging, I'm going to make a rectangle on the car door. Now at the moment that's just a selection, but if I click on the Bucket Fill tool and then choose a colour, notice this first box is the foreground colour and the one behind it is the background colour. And since the fill type is set to foreground colour fill, I'm going to click on the foreground colour and choose my colour here. I'll go with a blue and make it quite a nice bright one there, and then click on OK. Then to make my rectangular selection blue, I just need to click inside it, and I'll go up to select and choose none to get rid of the selection. To make my decal a bit more interesting, I'm going to select the text tool. I'll change my foreground colour to white by selecting the default colours here and then switching them round. Then I'll set the font size down to 50 and click where I want the text to start. And I'm going to type bite my pie. That's not quite where I want it, so I'll select the move tool and then click and drag it into position. That looks better. So this image now has 3 layers. The Mustang car that we started with, the decal layer to which I added the blue rectangle, and this new text layer. By having these separate layers, not only can we build up our overall image bit by bit, but we can also make changes much more easily. Let's say I wasn't sure if the car looked better without a decal after all. By clicking the eye to the left, you can hide any layers you choose, and then click again to reveal them. Then if you wanted to actually delete a layer, make sure that it's selected and you'd click on this cross down here, but I'm not going to do that. Instead I want to save my finished image. So first I'm going to click on Save As, and I'll call it Muscle Car. Making sure that my pictures directory is selected, I'm going to save this GIMP XCF file. Now I also want to export the image as a PNG, so I'll click on Export As, and again make sure that it's going into my pictures directory. Then check that the file name ends with .png and click on Export. And keeping with the default options, I'll click on Export again. Right, let's close GIMP and bring back Shotcut. I can also close File Explorer. Next we need to import the image into Shotcut, so click on Open File, locate the PNG image, mine's this muscle car one here, make sure it's selected and then click on Open. You should see the image in the little preview window, and we need to click on the little plus sign to bring it into Shotcut. Okay, if we move to the timeline and bring video track 1 partially back into view, I want to find the end of my introduction, which should be around here. Let's have a quick listen to check.
You're in a Lewis Hamilton loose.
Yes, that's where I want it, so I'll click to put the playhead back in that position. You can use the left and right arrow keys on your keyboard if you want to do any fine adjustments. And now I'm going to drag my muscle car image onto video track 2 so that it lines up with the playhead, and let go. If you look in the preview window, you can see that the car is currently much too big, and also floating in fresh air. To remedy this, first make sure that the clip of the car image is selected in the timeline by clicking on it, and then head over to the Filters tab and select that. If you clicked on the right clip, you should see the name of your image at the top. We're going to add an effect or filter to it by clicking on the plus sign. You'll find some of the most popular filters in the Favourites section, but there's a complete list of what's available in the video and audio sections. Keeping in Favourites, I'm going to scroll down the list and select the Size, Position and Rotate filter. In the preview window you can see that this has put a box around the image, and to resize it we simply need to hover over one of the corners until the pointer changes, and then click and drag to either shrink or enlarge the image, and when you're happy with the size, let go. That's looking better, but the car's still hovering in the air. Let's say that I want to make it look as if this taskbar at the bottom is the road. If we move the mouse over the circle in the centre of the image, you can see that the pointer changes again. Now if we click and drag, we can move the whole image. So I'm going to position it there. That's definitely looking more like it, but if I play the clip back,
You're in a Lewis Hamilton loose.
It's all looking a bit stationary. If you recall, I said I wanted the car to race across the screen. To do this, first click here to select the previous point. You may need to click more than once to get the playhead back to the start of the image clip. With the playhead in position, we're looking for the keyframes button, which is this one here. Click on this to select it, and the timeline tab should automatically switch over to keyframes. First we need to set the position where we want the image to start. If you look at position in the filters box, you can see the current position. The number on the left, which is 22 here, is the number of pixels that the image is from the left hand side of the screen. In other words, this is the X or horizontal axis. And the number on the right, which is 406 here, is the number of pixels that the image is from the top of the screen. If we were to change both of these to 0, the image, the car, would be in the top left hand corner of the screen. So in order for this car to race across the screen from left to right, I want it to start over on the left, completely out of view. But since it will be driving along on the flat, I don't want it going up and down. So as it moves, the height or y-axis of this car will need to stay at 406 pixels. Let's first then drag this car over to the left, out of view of the screen. Let go there. As you can see, as well as moving left, it's actually gone up a bit as well. So let's double click in the box to highlight the number and change that back to 406. Right, so I've set the start position for the car. Next, in the keyframes section, I'm going to click on the Seek Forwards button, which will move the playhead to the end of this image clip. And now I'm going to drag my car image again, but this time off to the right hand side of the screen. And I'll set the vertical position back to 406 once more. Now let's click the Seek Backwards button to return the playhead back to the start of the car image clip. If I just scroll that down a little bit, you can see that the start and end positions for the car image that I just set have been marked as keyframes. Right, let's see what this looks like, shall we?
You're in a Lewis Hamilton loose. To get started, we need to download.
Not so much racing across the screen as a gentle drive, but hopefully you get the idea. You can actually click and drag the keyframe points if you'd like to play around with the timing. And when you're done, you can click on the timeline tab to go back to the main timeline. Now would be a good time to save the project. There may be sections in your video where not a lot is happening, like in a technical video when you're waiting for software to download, for example. Rather than making your viewers also wait for this to happen, it may be preferable to cut it out. So let's look at how to do just that. It helps to be able to view your audio track, so let's move that into position. Often the parts you may wish to cut won't have any talking going on, so by viewing the audio track we can identify such sections quite quickly. Let's place the playhead here and see what's going on in this section. I'm going to save that to my downloads directory. So sure enough, this is a part where I was downloading some software. I'm going to move the playhead just a little bit further on past the part where I finished talking. Then I'll click on the audio track to select it, and then press the S key on the keyboard to split the track. Then I'll do the same thing on the video track. First click to select it, then press S to split. Now if I work my way further along, I need to find where the audio resumes. And this looks like it here. So let's just double check. And when it's finished downloading, that's the one. This time I'll position the playhead slightly before the speech resumes. And again I'm going to select each track in turn and press S to split them. I now want to remove the section between the splits. So I'll select each track and this time press the delete key. Next we need to remove this blank section that we've ended up with. Because there's more than one track and we want to do the same thing to all of them, we can click the Ripple Edits Across All Tracks button. Now when we right click on a track and select Remove, it's removed the blank space from both of the tracks. And let's turn off that function. Now if we watch that part of the video, move that to my downloads directory. And when it's finished downloading, we can see that it's removed the long download section from the video. That actually doesn't look too bad, but what if the join between the 2 points was a little more jarring? Well, we could create a transition. To do this, you drag one clip over another and then let go. And that's created a transition between these two video clips in this section here. By default, this will dissolve from one clip into the other. But if you wanted to change this, you'd make sure that the transition is selected by clicking on it. Then click on the Properties tab and select a different type of transition from the video drop-down box. As you can see, there's quite a few to choose from, but I'll just leave this on Dissolve. Unless you want everything to be out of sync, we need to line our audio back up. So let's also drag our audio clips over one another to match the video track above. By default, this will create a crossfade from one audio clip into the next. Or you can manually set which audio clip gets preference using this slider here. There's not a lot going on in my audio transition area, so it should be fine to stick with the default. This is why it's a good idea to leave a little bit of space at the beginning and end when cutting your clips, as you probably don't want your spoken audio sections overlapping one another. Then all that's left to do for this particular part is remove this space here. And we can do that in the same way that we did before. Okay, so let's have a look at the result. My downloads directory. And when it's finished downloading, so not dramatically different in this instance, but if you kept your eye on the bottom left hand corner of the screen where it showed the software downloading, hopefully after adding the transition you could see the first video clip dissolving into the second. Obviously this is a much more powerful effect when the two video clips look completely different. Now you could just leave your video showing the entire screen all of the time, but if you'd like to zoom in on a particular section to make it easier to see for your viewers, we can do this by adding a filter. First, locate the section of video you want to change. In my case, I want to zoom in on this installation box here, so I'll position the playhead where that first appears. I'm going to make sure that the video track is selected and press S to split it. We don't need to do the audio track this time. Then you need to move along the timeline and find the end of the section you want to zoom in on. For me, it's where the box disappears here. So again, I'll make sure that the video track is selected and split it. Then if I select the video clip where we want to zoom in and position the playhead on it, click on the filters section. And we're going to add a new filter, and you may have guessed it, it's the size, position and rotate filter that we want. Then all we need to do is use the corners of the image and click and drag to the size we want it to be. I'll do the bottom right hand corner as well. That's looking more like it. The installation box is better filling the screen. Now to centre it, you can just drag and use your eye, or if you click the toggle grid button down here, you can use that to snap it to the centre. Whether the centre is actually where you want it is another question entirely, I'm actually just going to drag that down a little bit like that and then turn the grid back off. So that whole section of video now is zoomed in, and if I just play the end of it you'll see it zoom back out. With the program installed we can click on Finish and then if you actually wanted to show the zooming on screen you could use the keyframes process like we did earlier in the video to move the car. There's one last area I'd like to cover, and that's speeding up the video. There may be a section that you'd like to show on screen but would be better speeded up. In a technical video this could be when the computer installs some software. To do this, first locate the section of the video on the timeline where you'd like to start the speeding up. Then, as we've done before, split the tracks at this point. Next, locate the end of the section you'd like to fast forward, and again split the tracks at this point. When you're fast forwarding you're probably not going to want the original audio, so I'm going to select that and delete it from the audio track. Then we need to select the video track, the clip you want to speed up, and click on the Properties tab. In here you'll see the speed section, which currently should be set on 1. So 1 times speed is real time. You need to decide how fast you want this section of video to play. I'm going to click in the speed box to get a cursor and then delete the 1. I usually start with 8 times faster to see how much time that will take up, and then click on Apply. Let's scroll along the timeline to see what we've got. So that section of video now goes from about 1 minute 17 seconds up to about 1 minute 32, which isn't bad, but I'm actually going to make it a little bit faster. So let's change that from 8 to 12 and apply that. Okay, that'll do nicely. I'll select the ripple button and remove the empty space. So we should now have a continuous video once more. Now you could just leave it like that, but I like to highlight the fact that the video is in fast forward. To do this, let's first save our changes in Shotcut, then minimize the video editor, and we're going to reopen GIMP. From the File menu, select New, and I'm going to set the width to that of my video, which is 1280 pixels. Since I want the text to appear inside a banner, I'm just going to set the height to 200 pixels, and then click on OK. You may have noticed that I didn't set the background to transparent. That's because I want it to be a darker shade. I like to use black, but you can use the bucket fill tool to change this to any colour you want. Although I don't want this background to my text to be completely transparent, nor do I want it to be a totally solid colour either. So making sure that the background layer is selected, I'm going to click and drag on the opacity slider to set that at around 50%. So now the text background will be a dark shade, but because we've made it semi-transparent we'll be able to see a little bit of what's behind it as well. Next we'll write our text, so click on the text tool to select it. If you want you can change the colour, I'll just leave it on white. Then we'll click to start adding our text. I'm going to write skipping ahead and then add 3 little dots. That's not quite as large as I'd like it, so I'm going to hold down Control and press A on the keyboard to select all the text, then double click in the font size box to change it, and I'll go with 100 and press Enter. Okay, let's use the alignment tool to centre the text, and then I'll save it both as a GIMP project file and also export it as a PNG. Then close GIMP and head back into Shotcut. We're going to place the text over the video clip that's fast forwarding, so find that section on your timeline. Then I'll scroll up a bit to see the video track above it. Now if we head back to the playlist and open the text banner that we just created, so that should be in Pictures. There it is, skipping ahead, and open. Then click on the little plus to bring it into your playlist and drag it into position on the timeline. You'll most likely need to click and drag the edge and extend it to match the video clip underneath. Then if you make sure that the text clip is selected and click on the Filters tab, we're going to add the size, position and rotate filter again. Then we can position the text where we want it on the screen. I'm going to place it along the bottom. Remember, if you want to position it more accurately, you can enter the X and Y coordinates into these boxes here. Notice that because we made the text background semi-transparent, you can still partially see what's behind it. You may have already gathered that in this respect the video tracks in Shotcut behave a lot like the layers in GIMP. In other words, anything on the track above appears on top of the track below it. So in this instance, the skipping ahead text appears on top of the SuperTux Kart installation video. And that nearly does it for video editing. I'll just do a few more edits using the techniques we've already discussed, and then I'll return to go through the export process. Okay, one last tip before we export the video. When you're working on the timeline, you can use this slider to zoom in and out. If you'd like to get an overview of the entire project, click and drag it to the left to zoom out. Oops, that's a little bit too far. Dragging to the right obviously zooms back in. For a more fine-tuned approach, you can use the zoom out and zoom in buttons. Right, let's export the video. I know we've already been saving our project, but unless you want to keep watching it inside the preview window, that's why we need to export the video. So first click on the View menu and click on the Export option to select it. You should now see an Export tab, so make sure that's selected as well. We now need to choose a video preset, in other words the type of video format we want to create. Since I'm making this video for YouTube, I'm going to select that one. And to help speed up the video encoding process, I'll tick Use Hardware Encoder. And with our export settings chosen, we can click on Export File. If you'd like, you can change the file name. I'm going to stick with SuperTux Kart. It's going to put it in my videos directory, so let's click on Save. You'll see the progress of the export in the top right hand corner. Depending on various factors, not least of which is the speed of your computer, this may take a while. So now would be the perfect opportunity to grab that all important coffee. When the export's finished, you'll see a little green tick. So let's close Shotcut and go and find our video. And there it is, SuperTux Kart. Right, are you sitting comfortably? Yes, that's right, the time has come to enjoy the fruits of our labours. Welcome to my short video where we'll be setting up the SuperTux Kart racing game. Whether you're running Windows, Mac or Linux, you can install this free 3D game and let your inner Lewis Hamilton loose. To get started, we need to download the software. So open your web browser and search for SuperTux Kart. It's this one we want, supertuxkart.net. From the home screen, click on Download and then select your operating system, and I'm going to save that to my Downloads directory. And when it's finished downloading, you can close your web browser. With SuperTux downloaded, head to your Downloads folder to install the software. Double click the file to get started and click Yes to continue. Click Next on the wizard and then click I agree to agree to the license. Click Next again and then click on Install. With the program installed, we can click on Finish and then close File Explorer. If you head for the Windows search box and type SuperTux Kart, you can then open the software. You have the option to connect to a server to download add-ons and notify you of updates. For this short demonstration, I'm not going to do that. I'll keep with the default name it's given me of Bite My Pie and click on OK. It then asks if you'd like to play the tutorial of the game. Again, I'm not going to do that here, but feel free to try it. I'm going to go for single player. Here you can choose the type of kart that you want. I'll stick with the default. I'll keep it on novice, and then for game mode I'll select normal race. You then need to choose an unlocked track. I'll go for this one, and then you can click on start race. Okay, so use the cursor keys on your keyboard to control your kart. If you want to exit, press the escape key on your keyboard, and then from there I'll exit the race and I'll quit the program. And that's how you get up and running with SuperTux Kart. Thanks for watching this short video and happy racing. With the video complete and ready to go, all that's left to do is upload it to YouTube. So let's open a web browser and head to youtube.com. From the home screen, click the sign in button. I'm sure a lot of us already have a Google account, but if you haven't, you can create one here. Enter your login information to sign in. Once you're signed in, click on your account at the top right and head to YouTube Studio. From there, select the Upload Videos button, and then I'm going to browse for my video. There it is, SuperTux Kart, and with the video selected, I'll click on Open. Depending on the size of the video, it may take a while to upload. Fortunately, we don't have to wait, and we can start filling in the details. Start by giving it a title. This is what people will see when they're searching on YouTube. I'm going to go with Racing Fun with SuperTux Kart. Next, it's a good idea to enter a description to go with your video. If you scroll down the page, you need to select a thumbnail to go with the video. You can either upload one or select one of those shown. As you make more videos for YouTube, you might want to create playlists, but if this is your first video, you won't need to bother about that. Next, you need to specify whether or not your video is made for kids. If it is, there are certain guidelines to be followed, so be sure to check out the What is Made for Kids content link. Then if I expand the age restriction section, I don't want this video to be restricted to viewers over the age of 18, so I'll make sure that the No Don't Restrict My Video option is selected. Okay, next click on Show More to reveal further options. This video doesn't include a paid for promotion, so I can skip past that. If you want it to, YouTube will automatically insert chapters into your video so long as this option is ticked. As this is a pretty short video, it doesn't really need chapters, so I'm going to unselect that. Alternatively, if you wanted to insert your own chapters, you can manually add them into the description. For example, if I added this line here, that would add a chapter that I've named Introduction at 0 minutes and 0 seconds, or in other words, the very beginning of the video. But as I say, I'm not going to insert chapters into this video. Below the automatic chapter section, we have tags. Here you have the chance to enter words that are connected with your video that are often misspelt. So since my video is about a racing game, if we pretend that people often misspell the words game and racing like so, we could enter them here, so that any searches containing these misspelled words would still be able to find your video. Just remember to type a comma between each word to separate them. As I'm sure nobody would ever do that, I'm going to remove those words. Beneath tags we have language and captions certification. So I'll select my video language as English United Kingdom. There it is. I'll leave the caption certification on none. Select today's date as the recording date, and then enter United Kingdom for the video location. If you type in the location, you should then be able to select it from the list. Below that we have license and distribution. You probably want to just stick with the standard YouTube license. Decide whether you want to allow other people to embed your video in their websites. It's a good idea when adding a new video to publish to subscriptions feed and notify subscribers. YouTube Shorts are a newer feature, no doubt inspired by the success of TikTok. So decide whether you want to allow other people to use parts of your video as content. Then below that we have category. Being a video about a racing game, this one will go into the science and technology category, but select whatever's most suitable for yours. Then at the bottom we have comments and ratings. I'd suggest it's a good idea to set it to hold potentially inappropriate comments for review. You can then choose how you want your comments sorted. I'll leave that on the default option of top. And you can also choose whether or not to show how many viewers like and dislike the video. When you've made your selections, click on Next. You won't need to concern yourself with monetization to begin with, so let's skip past that. In the Video Elements section, if you've created subtitles, you can add them here. And once you've started building up more videos, you can add an end screen to promote related content. There's also an option to do this through the use of cards during the course of your video. As this is probably your first video, simply click on Next. YouTube will automatically perform certain checks to make sure you're not doing anything naughty such as breaking copyright. Let's click on Next to proceed. And now we come to the final screen, which is visibility. So here you'll most likely want to make your video public so that everyone can see it. If you don't want to publish it right away, you can set a schedule as to when to make it available. If on the other hand you're chomping at the bit to release your video, YouTube advises checking these points before publishing. Also note that there's a handy link here as to where you'll be able to find your video on YouTube. So you could copy this and then send it to family and friends. And when you're sure that you're ready to go, hit the big publish button. And that brings us to the end of this video. When it comes to creating content, everyone develops their own system. Whether the videos are for sharing on YouTube or some other purpose, I hope that having gone through my own particular process, this helps you to discover a method that works for you. Having used a far less powerful machine to demonstrate, I can honestly say that when it comes to video editing, hardware does matter. Both in terms of performance and quality, better specs will produce a better result. So what are you waiting for? Time to get those creative juices flowing. As always, if you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe. And if you'd like to be notified when I post the next one, just click the bell icon. Thanks for watching, and until next time, take care.